Did we lose Dr. Dugo?
All right, not sure why I got kicked out, but okay, I'm back now. I apologize for that. I'm not sure what happened there. Okay, so I'd like to start off by introducing our team. We have Dr. Bowes, who is the Executive Director for Smith Institute for Applied Research. We also have Dr. Tara Bingo. She is our Undergraduate Research Development Manager. And we have Mrs. Keisha Talbot Johnson. She is our Strategic Research and Communications Manager.
Hey everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
So Keisha, do you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So did everyone get kicked out or was it just me?
It was just you temporarily.
Oh, okay.
But you're back on. You
right.
sound great.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. And then we also have Miss Margaret Watson. She is our administrative assistant. So by the end of this workshop, you guys should be able to understand what a literature review is and what its purpose is. You should know how to organize and write a literature review. You should also know what plagiarism is and what information does and does not need to be acknowledged when you're citing your sources, as well as how to avoid plagiarism in your own work. So according to Irene Clark in the book titled Writing the Successful Thesis and Dissertation, Entering the Discussion, a literature review surveys scholarly articles, books, and other sources such as dissertations and conference proceedings that are relevant to a topic. So its purpose is to demonstrate that the writer has insightfully and critically surveyed the relevant literature on his or her topic in order to convince an intended audience that the topic is worth addressing, okay? So the purpose of the literature review is to take a critical look at existing research that's significant to the work that you are carrying out. So it'll provide background information, help to establish the importance of the topic that you are researching, and it demonstrates familiarity by tying common themes and subject matter among that existing research, as well as to carve out a space for further research, which is where your project will come into play. So when might you need to conduct a literature review? When you're writing a review paper, for the introduction of a research paper, or for your master's thesis or your dissertation, to embark on a new area of research, or to research a proposal. And for most of you who are on today, for your senior investigative paper, your SIP. So in the pre-writing stage, you will be formulating a problem or a primary research question, and that's based on the topic or field that you're interested in, and you'll be discussing the issues that lie within that research. Also, you will choose the literature, so you'll be finding materials that are relevant to your subject area, and determining which of those literature make a significant contribution to that topic. And you will also be analyzing and interpreting. So you're taking notes on the findings and conclusions of the literature that you have decided is pertinent to the topic that you are discussing. So initially, everything will seem relevant when you're going and collecting your source material, but you will have to dive further into that literature to tease out some of those specific areas of focus to help you define your problem. So the more that you read, the clearer your defined problem will become to you, okay? So then it'll be able to help you better determine what sources you should read and which ones you should weed out. So you should initially start to narrow your focus. So first, by starting with new material and then going to old material, and then you may start general and then move to specific. So say for instance, you're thinking about looking at cancer. So cancer is a general term, but you could go more specific and look at something like breast cancer, okay? Or you could start generally looking at breast cancer and then start to be more specific by looking at a particular type of breast cancer, like metastatic breast cancer, okay? So starting with the general topic will lead to a more specific area of interest, and it'll also help you understand the interrelationships of that research. So as you are looking at your source material, you want to make sure that it's a quality journal, and you can also look at the output of that author. How much research is that author putting out in that particular field of study? So as you read and become more informed on the topic, you'll probably need to go back and then refocus your search. So you'll always be thinking, analyzing, and weeding out, okay? So another thing that you could possibly do as well is take some time out with your advisor or your mentor or your professor who you're working with your SIP, or you can talk to an experienced researcher in your particular field of study or the particular topic that you're interested in, and get some feedback from them and just talk through any problems that you're encountering with your own research. So how do you start out by reading your source material? You're reading for the bigger picture. So you should start out by reading the easier works first, and then skimming those documents and identifying those major concepts within that document. So after you've read about 10 or 15 papers, you should have a general understanding and be able to see some patterns in the research. So you'll be able to draw those connections and see which researchers have conflicting or similar views on a particular subject matter. So as you take a closer look at your source material, you should read the abstract, as this will help you determine whether to read that particular article in detail. Then because you may find that after reading that abstract that particular article is not relevant for your needs. So the next thing you could do is read the introduction. So the introduction will explain the importance of that study and provide a review and evaluation of relevant literature. So those papers that you read, they're doing the same thing that you're doing when you're preparing your literature review. They have to go and do the same thing. They have to search the literature to back up the research that they are doing. So the next step would be to read the methods. So you would focus on the participants, what particular measures that they're using in that article or for that particular study, and the procedures that they're using. So next you'll evaluate those results. So you're looking to see if those conclusions that they make are logical, and if you can detect any biases on the part of that particular researcher, okay? And lastly, when you're looking at the discussion, it's not of big importance for your literature review, so you can kind of take it with a grain of salt, but you're really just paying attention to any limitations that that study may have, because that will help you with defining your problem and the particular research that you're going to do for your topic. So as you're reading your reference sources, you should start to organize them. So you can do that by subject. So if you're looking at more than one subject, you would sort those materials based on the subject. You can do it chronologically by looking at the most recent research that's out there, going to the later research papers. You can organize it by theme, idea, theory, or the major research studies that they focus on. You can arrange it by author, okay? You can also arrange it by the argumentative stance. So no matter what method you choose, there must be some relationship that you draw between those sources, okay? So setting them up or organizing them based on these methods will help you as you write your literature review. So next, after you have decided which papers are more relevant to your area of interest or your research topic, then you will start taking notes from those pertinent documents. And those notes should include the purpose of the study that's being reviewed, a synopsis of the content, as well as the research designs or methods that are used in the study, as well as a brief review of any findings from that particular study. So once the notes are complete and you've organized everything into a common theme, those methods that I showed you previously, you know, based on chronological order, author, argumentative stance, things like that, Then you can set it up either in a Word document, or you can organize it on index cards, or you may also want to construct a table with that information, okay? So as you're organizing your review, you'll start to integrate those findings from your note-taking or from the tables that you formulate. Okay. So your literature review, it will be organized by introduction, body, and conclusion. In the introduction, you will focus more so on the content, the structure, and the boundaries. So what information is being covered, how it will be organized throughout the literature review, and setting boundaries for those things that may be outside the scope of your particular focus area. The body of the literature review, it will include those key topics that you will discuss. So you're evaluating and summarizing each of those as they're relevant to your research project. And then in the conclusion, you're highlighting the most relevant points and then tying those back to the need for more research, which is what you will be offering through your particular project. So you'll be adding to the knowledge base of that topic. So in the introduction, you will explain why the topic is important and give the reader an idea of where you're going in your literature review paper. So you can define or explain the primary problem that's being addressed by the literature review. You can explain the main conflicts in the literature. You can explain the time frame of the literature that you will focus on, or you can offer a rationale for why you chose those particular source material. Okay, so you may use all of these, or you can focus on just specific ones when you're writing your introduction. In the body of the literature review, you should group the research studies and the other types of literature according to a common denominator. So by using subheadings based on whether you're dividing your literature based on topic, theme, time period, or argument, okay? Just be sure to show the relationships between those sources. So discuss the source's significant contributions, which you will do by summarizing the studies or the articles and describing the main findings, those relevant methodological issues, and or the major conclusions. So your references prior to the study should be in past tense. And when you're referencing narrative or text other than the particular study, then those should be in present tense, okay? So as you're concluding your literature review, you should discuss major areas of agreement or disagreement, contextualize your topic within the summary, and point out gaps in the existing literature and show how your research will fill in these gaps, okay? So as you're revising your literature review, you should ask yourself these questions. Have you accurately presented the author's views? Is your source material research current and relevant to your topic? Are all the major theories, scholars, and studies represented from that particular topic? Have you shown a relationship between your sources? is there a clear connection between your topic and your literature review? Are all your sources documented accurately? Have you used transitions from idea to idea, or source to source, or from paragraph to paragraph? And is your analysis of the sources well developed? And have you represented all conflicts or argumentative sides fairly? So once you've done that and answered those questions, then you want to be sure that your literature review is accurate and thorough. Your review, it acts as a guide for others as they research this particular topic. And you need to make sure that your review is accurate. So that means that your citations are correct and that your findings are attributed to the correct author. And you want to make sure that someone can track down whatever article you're using and be able to find exactly what you stated. So make sure that you've provided a reliable representation of what the author is saying in that particular paper. Also, you want to make sure that your literature is complete. So that includes that you've used all the important papers on that topic. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to include every paper that's written on that topic, just those that are relevant to that particular study or particular area of focus that you are looking at. So in summary, be meticulous about your citations. So as you read, try to see the big picture. Your literature review should provide an overview of the state of the research. It should include only source materials that help you shape your argument. So you should resist the temptation to include everything that you've read. You also want to balance the summary and analysis as you write. So as you are summarizing what that paper or article that you're using is saying, you also want to be analyzing your own interpretation of it. So you also want to keep in mind that your purpose for writing, how is this review going to benefit readers, and how does it contribute to your study? So at the end of the day, you want to be meticulous about your citations with your literature review. So make sure you are citing everything that you write and utilize, okay? So that's a good segue into the next part of this presentation. So avoiding plagiarism, okay? So in the previous workshop that I did, we talked a lot about citations and the different type of citation styles and how you should properly cite your work. So if you missed that presentation, you feel free to contact me and I will be happy to share it with you. So what does the word plagiarize actually mean? Okay, it comes from the Latin word plagiarius, which later became plagiary, which means to kidnap. So when you're plagiarizing, you're taking or kidnapping someone else's work. So according to JCSU's definition of plagiarism, if you look in the 2021-2022 university catalog under the JCSU honor code, you'll find that plagiarism is defined as stealing and passing off as one's own without proper citation the ideas and writings of another. Okay, so let this soak in. Okay, so this is something you can always go back to and reference as you're writing. So what are some common examples of plagiarism? Okay, downloading papers from commercial websites and then turning them in as your own, downloading pictures or music or parts of other people's PowerPoint presentations that you find on the web and putting it as your own work, turning in as your own work a paper that someone else wrote, or turning in your own work that you purchased as your own work, something that you purchased or downloaded for free from the internet, cutting and pasting or directly copying something that you found in an article on the website or other source and not citing them, as well as paraphrasing or summarizing what you read without citing the source. So plagiarism, it can be deliberate or unintentional. So some of the deliberate forms of plagiarism are copying or buying a paper, recycling one of your papers from another class, or using information that includes ideas, words, passages from another source without acknowledging or citing that source. So with unintentional plagiarism, that could be paraphrasing that's too close to the original source, and they call it patch writing. Copying or pasting online sources into your paper, and forgetting to name the source. Okay, so those are the deliberate and unintentional types of plagiarism. So what kind of information isn't necessary for you to acknowledge in your paper? Anything that's common knowledge, okay? So something that your readers will already know. So for example, that Barack Obama was a US Senator for Illinois before he became President of the United States, or that insider trading is illegal. So both of these things are common knowledge that anyone would already know. Also, something that's common knowledge in a specific field. So for example, that depression is caused by biological factors and psychological and social stresses, or that the ultrasound machine can be used to treat a patient in both acute and chronic phases of healing. So both of these are common knowledge in their particular field of psychology as well as in physical therapy. So something, any information that someone else could easily locate. So an example would be that the communication giants Viacom and CBS, they both merged in 1999, or that Dr. Armbruster has been president of JCSU since January 2018. So both of these are examples of information that anyone could go and easily locate. So you don't need to reference those particular things or add a citation for them in your paper. Also, you do not need to cite results from your own research, interviews, surveys, observations, data, your personal views and interpretations. That's because it's not necessary to cite yourself unless these things have already been published, okay? So if something that you have that is work of your own that you previously published, then you can cite those things, but otherwise you do not have to cite those particular things. So what kind of information requires you to acknowledge the source or cite the source? And before we talk about that, I would like to talk about some of the common citation styles that's in the previous presentation that I did. But Chicago or Turabian are used by humanities and history. The Modern Language Association is used in English and humanities, and the American Psychological Association or APA style is typically used in the social sciences or the sciences. But it will all depend on what your discipline requires or what your instructor has given you as their preference for your paper. So all of those citation styles have something in common, and these are typically the things that they have in common. The author or editor of the book, the article, the website, story, etc. The title of the work, the publication information, so where it's published, who published it, and when it was published, the volume, issue, and page numbers, if it has those, the date that it's obtained, and the URL if it's an electronic source, okay? So that just means any information that someone else would need to find this particular work again. Those are the things that are included in the citation. So the first kind of information that requires a citation acknowledgement is when you're using a direct quotation. So you're incorporating another person's ideas exactly word for word into your paper. And here's an example of that. So this particular quotation is written in MLA style. So you'll notice that you have the author's last name and the page number where that particular quote is found. So with MLA style, this is the in-text citation, and this would be the citation that you would include at the end of your paper under your references. So you also need to acknowledge paraphrased facts or statistical information that you get from other sources that people may not generally know. So this is an example of that. And this particular one is in APA style, or American Psychological Association citation style. So you'll notice that this particular one does not have an author. So it begins with the title of that source. So in the in-text citation, you will put in quotation marks the first word or the first couple of words of that title, followed by a comma, and then the year that that article was written. So you also need to acknowledge any claims, arguments, theories, interpretations of others that you have paraphrased or summarized. And here's an example of that that's in APA style. So same thing here, you see the author's last name followed by a comma and the year that that publication came out. And then that's the in-text citation, and this is the citation that you would include at the end of your paper as a reference. So lastly, you want to acknowledge ideas from others via any personal communications, such as conversations that you may have with a professor, friend, or acquaintance. So this is an example of what that would look like in your paper. And this one is in APA style. So you see the in-text citation, it was a personal communication, and then you put the date that that occurred. And here in the reference citation that you will include at the end of your paper, you have the professor's name followed by the date, personal communication, and then in brackets you put personal interview. So what should you do to avoid unintentionally plagiarizing? So skillfully integrating sources into your writing is not an easy task, but it is what being in academia is all about, okay? So being able to balance between presenting the ideas of others as well as looking at your own interpretations. But the good news is that the more papers you write, the easier this will become for you. But in the meantime, remember these key things. Don't copy a passage and change only an occasional word here or there, because this is still considered plagiarism. And it's, like I told you earlier, it's called patch writing. Don't cut and paste material directly into your paper without summarizing, paraphrasing, or quoting. And remember to always cite. When in doubt, cite. So here are the references for my presentation today. And at this time, I will take any questions that you may have. Thank you, guys. And also follow us on our social media. This is our website, smithinstitute.jcsu.edu. You can follow us on Twitter at Smith Institute, Facebook, Smith Institute at JCSU, on Instagram, smith.institute.jcsu, and on our YouTube channel, Smith Institute JCSU. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Dr. Dugo. I did want to remind any of the students that may have arrived late to please put your name and professor's name in the chat if you're getting credit for attending this workshop. Thank you, everyone.